Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Hannah from Spiritual Tarot, and today I'm going to be doing something a little different and just talking about the Akashic records. I mentioned accessing the Akashic records in one of my videos, and I got a question about how to do that, so I thought we could have a little chat today and talk about how you actually do that, if it's kind of a new idea for you. So I'm going to start this off by saying that I am definitely not an expert. When I was first learning tarot and meditation, I, kind of encountered some information on the subject. There are quite a few YouTube videos on it, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. But basically, it's something that I kind of experimented with and explored a little bit, but I haven't really felt guided to like really move down the path of becoming an expert on the Akashic records. But I don't think that that's necessary in order to, experience them for yourself. It's something that is always available to us as individuals, and you don't need to feel like, you need to be psychic in order to access them. You need to be like, a spiritual teacher. It's not anything like that. It's something that is available to all of us when we want to use it. So that's the first thing to really keep in mind. And really, I think the most important thing to understand about the Akashic records is that, everyone experiences it for themselves. Everyone's experience is going to be unique, so don't compare your experiences to that of other people. So those are just the two things to keep in mind when you're getting started, is that A, you don't need to be psychic, the information is available to everyone, and B, everyone's experiences are going to be unique, so don't feel like you need to compare your experiences to anybody else. So what are the Akashic records? I wrote down a little sentence. I have notes here, you guys, just about what I wanted to talk about. So really, I kind of find the best definition to be, for the Akashic records, to be an energetic record of all human events, thoughts, words, experiences that have ever happened in the past and will ever happen in the future. It can also be referred to as, universal wisdom. And it's encoded on the non-physical plane, on the etheric plane. So the etheric plane is the realm of thought and thought forms. And if you are not familiar with the different realms, I guess, like there's like the 3D physical realm, right? There's the emotional realm, and then there's the etheric realm, which is thought forms, and then there's even more after that, like non-physical realms and stuff like that. But it is important to differentiate that the Akashic records are on the etheric realm and are in the realm of thought and not part of the emotional realm necessarily. So when you're accessing it, you want to be tapping into the energy of the higher chakras. The crown chakra is really where you're going to be focusing your energy, because you can access information about, other people, other whatever, through your heart chakra, but that is accessing information through the emotional realm. So there are some, differences that need to be made when you're kind of working with these different energies. Kind of like experiment with touching both and see how they feel, because they are different. So the idea of the Akashic records is something that has been referenced in, ancient wisdoms. It's believed that, the idea, it has been even referenced in the Bible, what they call the Book of Life. That's in heaven. And then Tibetan monks have also talked about it or teach about it. as far as like in the last century, spiritual teachers like Manly P. Hall and Edgar Cayce kind of brought the idea back into, you know, Western thought, and as far as like spiritual teachings go. So just kind of making the Akashic records something that, you know, we are talking about again in the modern age and trying to relearn about, because it's information that has been kind of lost to us recently. And then the most recent expert, I guess you could say, is Linda Howe. She has a book out that is that basically teaches you how to access the Akashic records. She has a whole method that she has kind of really, you know, put into practice and uses. So if you are the kind of person that likes a definitive step-by-step method, I would definitely say look at Linda Howe's information. She has a YouTube channel. I am actually making a little playlist like all about the Akashic records, and so I'll put her videos on there as well as some other videos that I like, so that you can just kind of watch them all and see like what teacher resonates with you best. So it's really interesting because she uses a prayer. So her method is really simple, like going into meditation and saying a prayer that basically asks like your angels and guides to guide you to whatever information you need in the Akashic records. If you aren't as religiously based, maybe a prayer doesn't necessarily feel like resonate with you as much. So if you don't really resonate with like traditional prayers, that's okay. That's not, I think the downside to Linda Howe's stuff is that it does feel like it's a little restricting, when in reality, like, anyone can access the Akashic records, and you can do it in a million different ways. But her whole reasoning is that if you kind of want a tried and true method that, you know, works for lots of people, then just do it that way. So like I said, her how-to video will be linked, so you can check that out, because I do think that that's a good way to kind of you know, have your hand, like hold your hand, you know, as you're first starting out. I also want to mention YouTuber Ryan Cropper. He has a really cool YouTube video about how he accesses the Akashic records, but also how he understands them. So, and his is much more like, he has a much like wider, I think, vision of what it really is, like from a metaphysical standpoint. His understanding of, and his way of explaining you know, abstract concepts is really great. So he's like a wealth of information. I won't even try to get into his explanations because he does it best. So also watch his video too, but that's like in-depth, very like not technical, but kind of technical information, so you might have to watch it a couple times, just because, you know, he really has a lot to share. So basically, knowing what we know about the Akashic records, all thoughts and thought forms and experiences sitting above us or around us, and, you know, it's like memory almost, but for everyone, it's universal, the universal memory. So I think that step one, if this is something that you want to tap into and access, is that you have to accept the fact that everything and everyone is connected, and that you are experiencing life as, you know, one tiny piece of a universal being. And once you accept that, then you can understand that other people's and other things' experiences are a part of you, and they're in your memory, right? Because they are experiencing things and you are experiencing things, but you are them and they are you, so you can access their memories and their experiences. And if you have trouble with integrating that belief into who you are right now, then accessing the Akashic records is going to be really hard for you. That's like step one, and I feel like people don't talk about it that much in the videos that I've seen and whatever, but I do think that that is like the most important thing. Is kind of, you know, some people say like allowing the ego to drop away, losing the ego, but it's a little bit more abstract than just being like, oh, I'm putting my ego aside. It is accepting that you are connected to everyone and everything. And once you allow yourself to like open that connection and be a part of the entire universal consciousness, then you will be able to open that channel of communication and really kind of move between, you know, the memories of yourself and of others in within the Akashic records, essentially. I think that that is huge for, you know, step one. And then step two is deciding why you want to access these things, right? So you can't, like, I mean, you can go and it's like, okay, imagine going grocery shopping in like Walmart or Target or Costco, like one of those huge stores that have everything, like a big box store. And you get in there, and because they have everything, sometimes if you go without a list, you'll end up, like, let's say spending $200 on stuff you didn't need, or just kind of like wandering around and getting overwhelmed. And so I think that that kind of you know, tells us that if you want to really tap into the Akashic records, you need to have a purpose and an intention. So for some people, like if you watch my video, I said that you should access the Akashic records to find out more about your past life, especially if you have lives as other types of starseed beings. If you want to learn more about who, like what your soul's purpose was as a being that maybe wasn't human, and kind of learn like why you chose to incarnate here, as well as, you know, in other places, other planets, other dimensions. So if it's to kind of learn about your past lives, that's a great reason. If it's to learn about your soul's purpose, that's a great reason. Some people do it to, you know, find out something about their future, to find out something about maybe the future of, you could do things that are global too, you know, like major events, if you kind of want to dive into that little bit of like future telling. That is possible, but I don't know that it will necessarily be fulfilling. And then another one could be finding out past lives about your friends. Maybe if you're doing readings for other people, friends, family, pets, even an energetic like a place, you know, like maybe you move into a house and it's haunted and you want to know why. You could access the Akashic records of a physical location to learn about the events that happen there. So it is really a way of understanding like the past, present, and future of any person or place, whether it was, you know, they're here on Earth or anywhere else, anything, doesn't matter. So long story short, have a reason for kind of going there. And it could be, like I said, very simple. But it's good to kind of have like a question and know what you're looking for when you first start. And instead of just kind of wandering around aimlessly and coming back with like confusing information that maybe you don't know what to do with. Okay, so, and then the last thing, which Ryan Cropper does kind of talk about, is that a lot of people will say that the Akashic Records is a library, right? And while you can use the visualization technique of, you know, walking through a library and seeing books, seeing scrolls, it is always good to kind of understand that it's not a physical library like in heaven. um, and it is abstract, and I think it's okay to make peace with the fact that you don't know exactly what it looks like, but what your mind does is kind of creates like a familiar atmosphere for you to process the information that's coming through, right? So if you want to see it as reading a book in your mind, or watching things on a screen, or walking through a library, that's fine, but it could actually be a little like a kind of like a way to confine the possibilities in your mind. Sometimes it's better to not have an expectation, and if you just ask like your guides, like, hey, show me this information, they will show it to you in a way you weren't expecting. So that is a personal choice. If you would like to explore the Akashic records and, imagine yourself walking into a library, that's totally fine. But if you, let's say, you decide to meditate and you don't see a library, you see yourself like in a cave or in a room, or maybe all of a sudden you get dropped into another life and you all of a sudden are a person, in ancient Greece. It doesn't mean you didn't access the Akashic records. It just means that you're being shown something in a different way. So I think it's important to kind of know that, once again, your experience is always going to be unique, and if you, just because you don't see like a library book sitting in front of you, doesn't mean that the information isn't genuine, doesn't mean that you weren't able to do it. It just means that your guides were showing you something else that they felt was important at the time. Those are kind of all of my like thoughts and caveats on accessing the Akashic records. Basically, the steps are pretty simple. Like I said, if you want to access them, you just need to find some quiet time and enter a meditative state. I always like to write things down, so I always write down what my intention is, write down your question, set your intentions. So that's simple. And then when you're meditating, I always say it's good to like ground yourself. So that's always like the first step, is to just ground your energy, set your roots down, and then it's really important to like open. So I always open my chakras, but when you're accessing the Akashic records, you are connecting to universal source energy, and that's through the crown chakra. So if you do a chakra balancing meditation, that's great. Once you ground yourself, you want to open up your crown chakra and allow yourself to kind of move away from who you are as you, and like allow the idea of you as part of the universal consciousness to kind of take over, right? So once you kind of open the crown chakra, and allow that energy to kind of like flow through you for a while, you can just kind of sit there. Some people do that by surrounding themselves with like the light of that chakra. I see that as white light. Some people see it as like a purple. So it's whatever resonates with you. And then you can ask your guides or angels to like assist you in moving into this next plane, into the etheric plane. And then just just watch, just observe, stay in that meditative state for however long you feel you need to. And I think it's really important to just kind of be passive. You don't want to be like actively like, let me look for this book, let me like be looking through this meditation. Like, just let the meditation run its course. And then when you're done, simply, jot down a few notes on your experiences, and then hopefully you'll find the answer to the question that you were seeking. you know, some people it takes a couple times to try it and, you know, feel like they got the answer that they're looking for. Other people, it happens right away. It's really just depends on you. But don't put too much pressure on yourself, and don't have any expectations. Like I said, feel free to, you know, follow a meditation that takes you to a library, but don't feel like that's necessary. And then just practice. I think that that's like the most important thing. This isn't something that happens overnight. And like I said this in the beginning, I'll say it again. You do not have to be psychic to be able to do this. This is something that is, you know, accessible to everyone. So don't feel like you need to be, you know, a psychic or intuitive in order to be able to do this. Anyone can. You just have to quiet your mind and really connect back in with, you know, who we really are, with the fact that we are everyone and everything. I guess I'll just kind of lastly talk about my personal experiences. Like I said, I don't think that I don't purposely try to access the Akashic records, like let's say in meditation and stuff, but I do believe that as a tarot reader, that is essentially what we are tapping into, right? So I see it as a way of translating the language of the universe. So the reason why a general reading resonates with a lot of different people is because I'm tapping into an energy and I'm using the cards to translate the language of that energy. And I guess that kind of touches on my tarot philosophy, is that, you know, I'm tapping into a collective energy and allowing it to kind of channel and speak through me. And that energy is essentially the Akashic records, right? It is kind of one and the same. I don't refer to it in my readings as the Akashic records, but that is kind of what it is, because it is, you know, the collective consciousness of our past, present, and future. So, you know, if you if you don't want to do this meditation, you could do it in tarot. So when I was first learning tarot, I was learning how to meditate, learning how to, you know, read and understand energy. And I kind of was doing basic meditations, like I said before, where you ground your energy, working with each chakra, opening them, closing them, very like, you know, basic stuff. And I started learning tarot by pulling cards from my friends, even if they weren't with me, right? So I did like these little tarot readings via text message, and like every Sunday I would just like, you know, pull a card for a friend and then send it to them and be like, hey, like this week it looks like this, and this is going to come up for you. And in order to do it, I kind of developed my own visualization method to connect with them, where I would, you know, be sitting on my bed with my cards, and I would picture the person sitting in front of me, and but they would be happy, right? So I would visualize them in my mind laughing or smiling or making a joke, and I'd have to see it like really clearly. And that was me tapping into their energy, but tapping into their energy on like a higher vibration, right? Imagining them not as they are right now, but as I know them in their happiest moment. And then that's when I found my readings to be the most accurate. And then slowly my visualization technique changed from not only visualizing them in front of me, being happy, but also imagining my crown chakra opening and almost like a cord or a cone like coming out, like so like my cord would come up And then I would like imagine like kind of like a cone in the sky, right? So I go up, and then I would imagine like finding their cord and just like jumping down through it, right, into them. So if everybody has a cord coming out of their head, it's basically all connected to the same like cone of energy. And then, you know, kind of like allowing that cord to, for me to like see through them, like see through their eyes. So this was just something that I was kind of like shown in meditation, and I would do, and it was very easy for me to feel it. Like I feel when I do it, it like, it's like almost like that electrically static energy. You kind of, and I would imagine myself like kind of like swimming up that cord. So I would swim up the cord and then jump back down to whoever I was reading, and it worked for me, right? So that's how I would tap into other people's energy, even if they're like hundreds of miles away from me. And then I got this book, Edgar Cayce, and honestly I haven't read all of it. It's 4 of his novels like smooshed into one book. I like got this book at a used book sale, like from a library used book sale, and I was like, oh, I really need to like read more about Edgar Cayce, blah blah blah. And I was just like rifling through it, and I came into these 2 pictures where he illustrates how like our consciousness is here, and then that's like universal consciousness, and then how we are all kind of connected, but we're like the end of the star. And I almost passed out because I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I like see in my meditations when I do tarot readings. And he even points out like, so it's like the subconscious mind, the individual conscious mind, and then the super conscious mind, which is the collective, right? And he said that like you can access other subconscious minds like through that bottom level, which is pretty much what I was doing when I just kind of like jump up here and then just kind of pop over to the next person. So that was like just really validating to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that like what I'm seeing in my head is in a book. It's really cool. And he talks here about, you know, telepathy and universal unconscious, and, you know, just all these different things that kind of correlate. So if you want to learn even more about the collective unconscious and the Akashic records, I do think that they are kind of linked. Definitely get Edgar Cayce's book. I think that one's on the mysteries of the mind, or you can just, you know, listen to some old Manly P. Hall lectures. It's another great resource. But yeah, so essentially, and this is actually something that Linda Howe says in her videos, is that, you know, we bump into the Akashic records and all the time, right? So you may have already accessed them in a meditation or while you're doing a tarot reading without realizing it. And her method, and the idea of just practicing is really just to kind of learn how to focus and like find what you're looking for, rather than just like blindly, you know, feeling around. So, you know, you just have to find the method that works for you. But I do, you know, think that at the end of the day, when you are getting the information, remember that it is thoughts, and it's not biased. If you feel strong emotional energy coming through, that may not be the Akashic records, because you know, that energetic signature is going to be a little different. So she described it as being very loving, very peaceful, but you can kind of still feel that there's like this life-giving energy to it, right? So you're tapping into something that is really big, and you know, has the ability to connect with everything and everyone. So you know, you have to always remember to kind of just put who you are to the back burner, put your ego on the back burner. And if you start feeling like that, like, side of yourself is taking over a little bit, you just have to be discerning with the information that you're getting, because you know, as you're practicing, sometimes that can be the hardest thing. It's like, oh, I got this vision, but I don't know if it was just my subconscious mind or if it was actually the Akashic records. And I think it just comes with practice. And whenever I would struggle with that, like wondering if it was me, I would always just like take a second to kind of like literally visualize myself like stepping back. Like I'd be like, okay, hold on, and I would like literally see my person, like taking a step back right now. Hannah's going to the back. She's going to the back burner. She's gonna go do something else, and then keep going. And that's it. It's a really simple and easy way of just kind of like not letting the ego take over. So I hope that this answered your questions, you guys. If you're interested in continuing to learn more, I feel like there's a lot of people on YouTube that can explain this better than I can. So definitely check out Ryan Cropper's video. Teal Swan has a video on it. Let's see, Linda Howe has her videos. And then I'll just compile them all onto a playlist and you guys can watch them. And then, you know, like I said, if meditation isn't your jive, you can, I think tarot is kind of the hack. You know, if you want to hack the system and use tarot to access the Akashic records, that is really what it is. That's what it does, is it translates that etheric energy that we're tapping into. So if you have questions about your past life and maybe you're not comfortable with visualizing, take out some cards, say, hey, I'd like to tap into the Akashic records to understand my past lives, and pull those cards out and see what comes up. So there's, you know, a bunch of different ways to access it. It is available to all of us. And that is that. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will put the link to my Akashic Records video playlist below, and I will see you in my next video.